Could one single mountain in Africa really change the balance of global power? Well, it might sound unbelievable, but let's dig a little deeper. Hidden deep in the Simandou range of Guinea lies a treasure so vast that geologists call it one of the most extraordinary iron ore deposits in the world. 16 billion tons of ore, with purity levels so high that steelmakers would fight tooth and nail to control it. For decades, Western mining giants circled above it like vultures. But one by one, their plans collapsed. Today, it's not Rio Tinto or Vale that hold the keys, it's China. And the way they pulled it off has left the world stunned. The Simandou Mountains look ordinary at first glance, just another stretch of rolling green hills in West Africa. But beneath the soil lies enough iron to fuel the world's steel industry for generations. Unlike lower quality ore found elsewhere, Simandou's reserves boast an average grade of 66%, making it one of the rarest and most valuable deposits on Earth. To put it into perspective, most mines would be considered world-class at just half that grade. If developed properly, this one site alone could supply steelmakers for decades. But here's the mystery. If the deposit is so extraordinary, why did it sit idle for over half a century? The answer begins with Western mining companies. As early as the 1990s, global players like Rio Tinto had already secured rights to the Simandou mine. On paper, it was the deal of a lifetime. But year after year, almost nothing happened. Despite having exclusive mining rights, Rio Tinto drilled only a handful of test holes over an entire decade. Vale, another global heavyweight, stepped in later, but progress stalled again. Why? The problem wasn't the iron itself, it was moving it. Simandou sits over 600 kilometers from the nearest Atlantic port, and the route is anything but straightforward. Mountain ranges, unstable terrain, and seasonal floods made transportation nearly impossible. Building a heavy-haul railway would cost billions, and no Western company wanted to take on the risk. Instead, they tried stopgap solutions like shipping the ore through neighboring Liberia. But Guinea's government refused, insisting the ore must pass through its own ports. For the mining giants, that was the end of the story. Without cheap transport, the mine wasn't worth the gamble. And so, the mountain stayed silent. But while Western companies dragged their feet, China saw opportunity. In 2019, Beijing made a move that would flip the script entirely. Instead of haggling over short-term profits, Chinese firms offered something bold, a $10 billion deal to build a 670-kilometer railway connecting Simandou directly to the Atlantic coast. In exchange, China secured a 25-year mining license for the deposit. This was not just a business deal, it was a statement. Where Western firms saw obstacles, China saw strategy. They weren't just mining ore. They were buying influence, stability, and long-term access to a resource that could reshape their steel industry. Why did Guinea agree? The answer lies in years of frustration. For decades, the country had watched as foreign companies promised riches but delivered almost nothing. In 2008, Guinea even revoked Rio Tinto's rights after citing slow progress, handing them instead to an Israeli-owned firm, which quickly flipped the asset to Vale for billions. Corruption scandals followed, projects stalled, and Guinea's people were left with broken promises. China's offer was different. Instead of demanding ore up front, Beijing proposed infrastructure, railways, ports, jobs. By agreeing, Guinea wasn't just selling minerals, it was gaining the backbone of a modern economy. The deal promised 200,000 jobs and urbanization along the railway corridor. For a country long trapped in poverty, despite sitting on vast resources, the choice was clear. But building the railway wasn't just a handshake agreement. The scale of the project was staggering. Imagine carving through 670 kilometers of rugged terrain, blasting tunnels through mountains, laying heavy steel tracks across rivers and valleys. This wasn't just any railway, it was a heavy-haul line capable of transporting millions of tons of ore every year. Globally, only a handful of such railways even exist, and almost none in Africa. China committed not just money, but also its most advanced engineering equipment, from tunnel-boring machines to communication systems and rolling stock. Once operational, this railway wouldn't just move iron ore. It would reshape the entire region, linking villages, creating trade routes, and giving Guinea its first real shot at economic independence. For the people, it meant more than steel. It meant hope. For China, Simandou is not just a mining project, it's a lifeline. The country produces over 1 billion tons of steel every year, fueling everything from skyscrapers and bridges to cars and electronics. And all that steel requires iron ore, mountains of it. Between 2015 and 2024, China imported a staggering 11 billion tons of ore, averaging over 1 billion tons every single year. The problem? Almost all of it came from just two countries, Australia and Brazil. Australia alone accounted for 66% of China's imports, Brazil another 21%. This meant that nearly 90% of China's iron ore supply was concentrated in two nations, both of which had their own political and economic agendas. In 2020, that vulnerability became painfully clear. Iron ore prices soared past $230 per ton, doubling within months. Australia profited massively, but China's steelmakers were hit hard. The message was undeniable. Relying so heavily on two suppliers was a national risk. And that's why Simandou matters. By securing this mine, China isn't just diversifying its supply, it's loosening the grip that Australia and Brazil have held over its steel industry. For Beijing, it's about more than business. It's about security. But the ripple effects go far beyond China. Guinea, once sidelined and dependent, suddenly holds bargaining power. No longer can Western companies dictate prices through control of transport routes. With the new railway, Guinea can finally move its resources to the global market on its own terms. And across Africa, leaders are watching closely. For decades, Western nations followed a simple playbook: extract resources cheaply, invest little, and leave countries dependent. China's model flips that script. By trading infrastructure for resources, it offers something African governments have long demanded: development. Already, Chinese companies have built or renovated over 10,000 kilometers of African railways, 100,000 kilometers of roads, and nearly 100 ports. The Belt and Road Initiative has become more than an economic plan. It's a continent-wide transformation. Still, the question remains: is this partnership truly a win-win, or is Guinea simply trading one dependency for another? Western critics argue that China's deals saddle African nations with hidden costs and long-term commitments they may struggle to escape. Supporters counter that without such investments, mines like Simandou would have remained untouched forever. What's undeniable is that the Simandou project is more than just a mining story. It's a chapter in the battle for global influence. On one side, Western companies that prioritized short-term profits and control. On the other, a rising power willing to spend billions upfront for strategic gain. So the next time you look at a skyscraper or drive across a steel bridge, remember this: the iron inside might have come from a mountain in Guinea. A mountain that could change the future of nations. And now the question turns to you. Did Guinea make the deal of the century by partnering with China, or has it simply swapped one master for another? Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing for more content like this. Until next time, stay inspired.